Hello, everyone. My name is Shannon Jackson. I'm Associate Vice Chancellor for the Arts and Design, and it's a privilege to welcome you here to Visualizing the World. As Vice Chancellor for Arts and Design, I run an office that essentially serves as glue function amongst a range of creative units that have shared missions and goals around the visual arts, around writing and journalism, around photography, performance, film, documentary, and otherwise, and to connect the dots amongst schools, departments, presenting organizations, museums, and a variety of other creative spaces and clubs on campus. So this series is part of what we do. Part of what we also do is promote the events and connections of other organizations on campus. And so before I proceed farther, I'm going to do just that and promote an event that is going to take place here tomorrow night at PFA. We will be seeing the premiere, the pre-Bay Area release of The Assistant, a film directed by Kitty Green, starring celebrity actress Julia Garner, and produced by Cal alum James Seamus. It's set to be an incredible film. We'll get a sneak preview of it here. Doors will open at 6:30 tomorrow for a screening that will start at 7. Come, it's an opportunity that you don't get to have except through your affiliation at UC Berkeley. Those who are here are also people who have affiliations with UC Berkeley, specifically the alums and faculty of the Berkeley School of Journalism. Before welcoming these alums and my colleagues to the stage, I wanted to be sure that this crew here tonight understood a bit about the context in which you're attending this event. This series is part of A+D Mondays, Arts Plus Design Mondays, a much larger lecture series that occurs every Monday night and is co-curated by a range of departments, schools, museums, institutes, centers, and clubs on campus. So every Monday night, you could know that you can gather here to see a great lecture, to see a series of amazing artists, creatives, thinkers, filmmakers, etc. Part of what we also do at Berkeley Arts Plus Design is give out a whole range of creative pedagogy grants. We work on artist residencies. We also are responsible for something called the Berkeley Arts Passport that offers subsidized student tickets to arts events to Cal students through a mobile app. These and other programs are incredibly exciting to curate, and I hope you can participate in as many of them as possible. This series tonight also has another function. Around 40 or 50 students are enrolled in a course that is piggybacking on this lecture series. So every night, students in Humanities, 20 students, you could raise your hands. 20 students, are also being asked to think about every night what they see and hear. We're asking them to think around 3 central themes around technology, especially about the dialectics between the human and so-called artificial intelligence. We're asking them to think about creativity, especially the relationship between form and content, the medium and themes that people are trying to get across in their work, and about public good and social justice, how all of that is employed in a way that advances or challenges ideas about democracy, power, and authority. So those 3 themes are themes throughout our whole semester, and they're clearly going to be themes that we'll see on offer tonight in the offerings around and presentation around the work of the School of Journalism. I remember when we first started to reach out with the J School to ask them to join this merry band of creative units that were all working together. And I remember there being a slight hesitation about whether the J School should sidle up to those of us in the arts and design and creativity, just to make sure that connection to creativity doesn't mean we're not doing factual, truthful reporting. And it has been really incredibly moving to me that the J School not only sidled up, but has proved to be and continues to prove to be such an inspiration for being ahead of the game in using ever new creative technologies to rethink what it means to disseminate journalistic content, but also create it. Our faculty and the students here have been absolutely incredible. Before I welcome them to the stage, I hope that you could join me in thanking Dean Edward Wasserman in absentia for his leadership. Deidre English, who has been the J School faculty member, who has been always connecting the dots for all of us and making sure that everyone is involved from the J School in what we're trying to do. To Koci and so many other faculty who also are always pushing the envelope in their teaching and in their understanding about what the field of journalism is. Tonight, our Master of Ceremonies is going to be Andrés Cediel, who is going to introduce, yes, alum and one of those innovators. We'll celebrate, who is also here to help us celebrate a range of other work. So thank you, this community, for being here. Check out the lecture series in general and help me welcome Andrés to the stage.
Thank you so much. Thank all of you, and thank BAMPFA and A&D for having us. It's actually really, as I was listening to that, and I'm standing out here looking at you all, it's really inspiring to see everybody come out on a Monday night for an event like this. I've been wondering myself, who are you? Who's out here? If you're a student, raise your hand. I want to know where the students are. Okay, good. That's okay. That's what I'm talking about. If you're an alum, raise your hand. Good. How about faculty and staff? Faculty and staff, great. Any community members out there? People, there you go, that's what I like to see. It's amazing. It's amazing that I think it's the power of the venue and the form. I'm so glad that the journalism school did saddle up, because this issue of how we deal with combining the visual aspect of our work with hard reporting is one of the central questions that we wrestle with all the time. We wrestle with it within our classes. We wrestle with it within the school and in between the different formats. Tonight you're going to see pieces from the multimedia strand, short form video, photography, and documentary. And these are how within the school we divide up this visual landscape. And there's probably lots of other ways to do it as well, in trying to figure out what's the best medium to tell the stories that we need to tell. And it turns out there's lots of forms to do this, and there's lots of forms to see what their strengths and what their weaknesses are. But at the heart of it, what we're trying to do is we're trying to tell stories that matter. We're trying to tell stories that are factual and accurate. I'll talk a little bit more in the short form video part about what it is, what the standards are in terms of how we're trying to put out reporting there that's going to make a difference. So that's my brief introduction. I'm stepping in for Koci Hernandez, who couldn't be here today, but I wanted to show some of his work. So the first work that we're going to see is from the multimedia platform, and this is something that is really exciting at the school in terms of as you see the field of journalism changing, as you see visual journalism changing. Which you might start off with something as a photograph, which we'll see soon. Documentaries, we know what those are. But as we all know now, and it's nothing new, and I think the new media track, it's been known as multimedia, new media, I think now it's changing its name to interactive, is really a space where a lot of us are mostly consuming the media that we get, whether it's on our phones, whether it's in computers. It's not just a push play and sit back and watch. There's different ways to interact with the space. There's print that goes along with it. Sometimes there'll be photos, sometimes there'll be video, sometimes there's going to be graphics. So one of the things that Koci's been able to do with his students is develop this whole new form of how to present this media. So we're going to take a look at some of the work from the past couple years. There's Koci, couldn't be with us tonight. And this is going to be a short trailer of some of the video work that his students have done over the last couple years.
어떤 인지 많이 그냥 어쩌 하이지 경우는 가고 인지로도 해야 된다.
I don't want to give up my child's life, so I'm only doing what's best.
I thought if I told them, they would see me different. They would disown me.
It's too late to say sorry and take someone's life.
Somebody shot at us. They're trying to scare us.
And it's quick money. It's better than selling drugs.
Cop jumps out and starts harassing your friends. You pull out their camera, start recording. I bet you he'll do his job right.
It's not easy, but no choice. I'm single mother. I need to fight.
One of the things I love about this event is at the school we spend a lot of time in our own silos, in our own classrooms, in our own edit rooms working with our students. We don't always have a chance to share and see the work that everybody else is doing. When I look at that as somebody who's teaching in the short form video class, what impresses me is the range of the shooting styles, the use of the graphics, the different interview setups, the way sound and graphics are being used. And so that's something that I think we're all exploring in our different platforms is how to best use that. One of the things that the new media platform did over the last couple of years that I've found even more impressive is the idea that they took their class and they organized it around a principle of a central theme of reporting. So last year they did here it is. If you go to this URL, and you can probably do it right now on your phone, it's a compilation of all the work that they did around the issue of exploited workers. And they took this theme and they divvied it up among the students, and they each took on different stories, and they produced pieces both in video, print, and also in photography. And so I'm just going to go through quickly some of the pieces that they did just to give you an idea. So for instance, this student here, Cecilia, she worked on a piece that had to do with how California state prisoners are only getting paid as little as 8 cents an hour for their work. And so you can see here, this is part of the presentation that would have been on the website. If you go there, you can click on it and find out more of the written pieces. I believe there was also a short video that went with this piece. These students here worked on a piece that was about how when the former inmates get out there, how they are able to find their way back into the workforce. So you can see how they're starting to explore different stories within a theme, incorporating photography, and then there was also a video that went with this one. Alex and Ann, they worked on a piece about undocumented workers and what their rights are and what rights they don't have and how they're being exploited in the workforce as well. So each of these stories building upon each other in different ways. Again, one of the things, from my perspective looking at this, not only are they doing the reporting and the video, but then starting to work on the layout and what's going to be your signature image. How are you going to present this? Josh and Sarah, what I'm going to show a brief piece about in their piece about wage theft, is they decided to do an explainer video, which is something that's more graphics heavy. And I'll show a couple seconds of it just so you guys can get an idea.
Wage theft has been called a defining trend of the 21st century job market. Minimum wage, overtime, and break violations are some of the most common ways workers are deprived of the payments they legally earned. Minimum wage can vary depending on where a person works. The federal rate is $7.25. In California, it is $11 or $12 an hour, depending on the company size. In some California cities, like San Francisco, it is higher, $15 an hour. Employers must always pay their employees the highest rate. Overtime for hourly workers kicks in after 8 hours in a day or 40 hours in a week, when the rate should be time and a half or double time a worker's standard rate of pay. Hourly workers are required to receive a 10-minute paid rest break for every 2 hours of work or a 30-minute unpaid meal break for every 4 hours of work.
So you can see that that style, which we call an explainer style, in this case very graphic heavy, is something that we've leaned into in the video world in terms of how to break down very complex ideas or situations into something that's more understandable. There's things that visual journalism is good at, and there's things that visual journalism doesn't do as well. And one thing that we struggle with are complex ideas and documents and the things that print journalists excel at because they have time to explain when you're sitting and reading. But as visual journalists, we have to be able to communicate those ideas as well. And so this explainer type video is something that we use to be able to break down those ideas. I'm going to show you a short piece from Mallory, who part of her in this project was looking at how women don't have access to lucrative construction jobs the same way that men do, despite all the affirmative action that's gone on to help promote them within the field. And I'm going to show you a clip from one of her videos.
They've treated me a certain type of way because I'm a woman, but how they do it, it's like they try to joke afterwards to make me not feel like that's what they're doing. Like today, for example, I was at work and the guys were talking, and most of the time when I say something, they either ignore me or they act like they don't know, so I just stopped trying to help out. And I went to go stand by another foreman, right? And then he was like, I'm thinking they should just tilt it like this and do that and then just stick it in there. And I said, me too, but he said, well, don't nobody care what a dumb girl has to say about it.
Some of them just wanted to talk about porn or take me to a machine room and try to kiss me or expose themselves.
He just felt up the front of my body.
And one of them grabbed me from behind and humped on me.
He pushed her down a concrete stairway.
I realize we're going through these clips pretty quickly, and when I was reviewing these earlier, it always surprises me how impactful a short piece of personal testimony can be. But that's one of the things that we excel in video. Whereas it's hard for us to tell complex ideas, we have this immediate access to people's lives and characters and emotion. And so it's always a balance of how you balance that emotion with the information that you're trying to convey. And hopefully through these types of personal stories, we can shed light on these bigger societal issues. So Mallory's work was very impactful in terms of talking about this issue that very few people are even talking about. And that's one of the things that makes me most proud to be doing this work at the journalism school with these students. The next piece I'm going to play by Francesca and Yutao Chen was this. We're just going to show us, again, another short clip so we can keep seeing all the work that the students are doing. Won a prestigious ONA award along with a silver medal for the College Photographer of the Year award. And this was a piece that had to do with where our supposed recycled material ends up. So it was a piece that started off looking at what's going on here in California, but then where does that go? And there's been pieces that you might have seen before about where our trash ends up, but these two were able to do a very surprising piece looking at the folks who recycle plastic in Vietnam and the health impacts that it has on them.
It's almost like an ecology. They fill in gaps. They didn't start with a plan. Once they are committed to that pathway, they have to weather those storms, or they have to get into some other business because there is no unemployment insurance for them.
Just a teaser. You want to see the whole thing. It's worth it. It's all on the website unseen.report. So I really encourage you guys to go see that. So we're going to keep going. We have a couple other classes and professors to go through. Ken, you're going to be up here next. So hang on. We're in for a treat of visual material. And so I'd like to introduce Ken, who was my photography professor back when I was at J School. Welcome, Ken. Good. There's your clicker. There you go.
Thank you, Andrés. Boy, makes me feel old. It's always impressive to see the amazing work of our multimedia program and its student projects, especially all this work with bells and whistles that can draw the viewer into the story. In our photo classes, we look at a story and we ask, how do we attempt to reduce a tiny area of the moving world to a set of still images that convey to the viewer that needs to know what the photographer saw, without the sound, without the smell and odors, not experiencing what's outside the viewfinder, and without seeing the motion, and there's no data sets or narration. It's just a still photograph. A little history first. The first photograph was taken in 1825 by the French inventor Joseph Niepce. It records a view of the window at La Grasse. The exposure lasted 8 hours. So it's really incredible. I like to say my students would never wait 8 hours to make a photograph. And it took 8 hours, so the sun in the picture had time to move from the east to the west, appearing to shine on both sides of the building, which was the first photograph taken. It's 195 years later, and photography is everywhere. And thank goodness our exposures, as I said, are no longer 8 hours. It's estimated that, it's kind of amazing, 1.3 trillion pictures are taken each year. And the rapid proliferation of smartphones is mostly to blame. 85% of all photos are now taken with some kind of phone. And that's up from 40% in 2010. Tablets represent 4.7%, and the full-fledged digital cameras now represent only 10.3% of the total pictures taken each year. Maybe now it's even less. It's changing so quickly. And I'm really afraid to ask of you in the audience, how many of you actually own full-fledged digital cameras? Okay, great. I'm in the right audience. So at the J School, in the photo classes, this is an example of what we do at the end of the semester. We do it the old-fashioned way. The students go out and shoot various stories, which I'll show you. We edit in class. We do a pretty large selection. And then I ask each student to bring in 40 to 60 photographs that are actually printed. And we set them up, and we start editing and move them around. And it's actually very exciting for all of us. They even get down on the ground. Not only are there more pictures to compete with, but there are also, as we know, all types of online platforms that broadly disseminate amateur photos. There are filters that lend a patina and a polish to amateur photographs. But photographers still can emerge, but they have to be very careful about what they're doing. They have to be very thoughtful, and they have to really think about what is the message they're trying to show. One of the things we discuss in our visual storytelling class is how do we attempt to reduce this tiny area of the moving world to set a group of still photographs that convey to the viewer what they need to know about what the photographer saw. It's exciting each semester to see what our students produce in the essay form, and I wanted to show you a couple of the essays that were done this last semester in our J210 beginning class. So Ann Doherty did a photo essay called By Any Means Necessary. She photographed the November protests of the conservative provocateur Ann Coulter's visit to campus, where she gave her famous Adios America speech on immigration. It was quite a challenge for Ann and the other photographers covering this story as the protesters decided that the media were also the enemy, along with the police and Ann Coulter. Ann and other J School students had an amazing experience at this event, and the result of this experience of protesters pushing against journalists ended up being a special town hall meeting that we had at the J School to discuss what is this all about? Why all of a sudden are we as journalists enemies? And how do we then get into these situations and tell these stories? So let me show you Ann's story. It's really well done, and Ann is right over there. Thank you. How does it look on the big screen? And it was a real challenge. I was actually there photographing as well, and I remember Ann was kind of inside, and there she was. I was on the outside watching her. And I know at a certain point, people thought she was a police agent, right? She wasn't a journalist, but she was. And it's a wonderful body of work recording this important moment on campus. And I think that's at you, right? Thank you, Ann. Daniel Roman, Daniel, are you here? I don't know if Daniel's here. Daniel traveled down to the border Thanksgiving week to photograph a group of activists painting a mural in Tijuana on the US-Mexican border fence. His project captured the story of asylum seekers, deportees, and other living in the migrant shelters, and their stories were then turned into a visual testament of the migration that's been going on. Nick Burt traveled along US 101 in a car ride with some fellow UC Berkeley students. And their idea was to make random stops, and two of the students, I hope it wasn't Nick, I didn't ask, spray painted graffiti as they tried to demystify roadside objects, bringing a newfound sense of art where previously there was none. And the last short essay I'm going to show you is Jesse Baden. Jesse photographed the results of the campfire in Paradise, California. As we all know or remember, the first 14 hours of the fire, 20,000 acres were destroyed, and in 2 days the fire reached over 100,000 acres. And by the end of the fire, 18,421 structures, homes were destroyed, and 83 people died and lay under the rubble. Now there's a large Welcome to Paradise sign that's on the southern border, and is propped up with a new slogan, Rebuilding the Ridge. So in the beginning class, we do a short essay, and one of the challenges of that class is to edit down 60 to 80 photographs to 10 photographs, find an introduction image, and then sequence the photographs in a way that tell the story with very few words. The two other classes we have around visual storytelling with photography are the Realize magazine class, and I saw some of you picked up the magazine, which is outside, and when you leave, you might grab one. And that's a class we do in which students do individual essays. We edit them, and then we put them together in a magazine, which is printed, which is novel at the J School, because so much of what we do now is online. And the idea of actually printing something of the old-fashioned way, having a deadline, dealing with a printer, is, I think, really challenging and very, very exciting. Last semester, we have a blurb book class. And the blurb book class is a class in which all the students in the class collaborate on one project. We pick a theme, or I pick a theme, and sometimes they push back. They don't like the theme. And other times they say, I don't know, it seems kind of weird, and then they end up loving it. One year we did Cal football, and they had access to the football stadium and worked on field, and I remember a number of them were like, I hate football. Why would I do that? And those, of course, were the students who at the end of the semester found it so exciting. And the idea of that was not so much catching the ball, but what is the culture of football, and what is that about? So this year, we did a photographic project photographing the Golden Gate Fields racetrack. Some of you may have seen that down at the end of Gilman Street. And as Max Brimelow wrote in the foreword, to the naked eye, horse racing is all about spectacle, but the carnival of the race itself is just the polished surface of a complex machine, within which nuts, bolts, cogs, and levers whirl away out of sight. The horses and the jockeys on their backs often seem to matter most, but for every minute or two spent hurling around the track, hundreds of people spend years working their fingers to the bone. Chunks of turf fly, crowds cheers, and wallets become a little thinner. And I know Max is here somewhere, back there. Thank you, Max. One of Max's great pictures as we show this is the $1 mimosas, right? Which is part of the draw to go to the racetrack. If you've never been, how many of you been to the racetrack? Wow, this is a gambling crowd. I hope you didn't lose too much money yesterday on the game. A group of UC Berkeley fraternity members went to the racetrack for $1 mimosa day, and you'll see some of the images that Max took, which, of course, when he brought them to class, we all chuckled. This is a great project. We published a book, which we actually just got today. It's really beautiful, and it's a combination of all the students' work in the class, and these are some of the photographers who worked in this. So sit back and enjoy. You don't have to bet any money on this, but you can make a donation to the J School if you want. That will go a really long way, right? Thank you.
I grew up not far from that racetrack, and I've never been, and now I want to go. It's just like, it looks so inviting and exciting. For those of you who aren't familiar with the curriculum at the journalism school, all the students who are going to go into some of the visual journalism fields, you'd have to take a course called J282, Intro to Visual Journalism. And that's what you take in your first semester in your first year. And from there, everybody starts to peel off into the different sections where they feel like they can express themselves the best. So it's fun to see these projects because some of those students have been my students in J282. People move around. There's a lot of interconnectedness and crossover, which I think makes all the work that much better. The thesis students that I teach are in a platform that we've recently called short form video. We were trying to figure out what to call this. Once upon a time, it was called long form video, and that was because it was longer than 2 minutes. It was longer than the 2-minute news piece. But at our school, where we also have a documentary program where people are producing 24-minute pieces, the then long form pieces were shorter. So we changed it to short form, which is in the 5 to 15-minute range. And these are the videos that is really what most of us are seeing online wherever we go, whether it's the New York Times, Washington Post, BuzzFeed, Vice, Vox. A lot of what people are consuming now are these 5 to 15-minute pieces. So that was what this class focuses on. But that's really the only parameters there are. Once you decide that length for this class, it doesn't matter if it could be narrated or not narrated. It could have a correspondent or not be correspondent. It could have graphics or not. What really matters to me is not so much the form, but that it has 3 things that are really important. It has to have high production values. It has to be a story well told, and it has to be good reporting. Now, of those, some of those might seem self-evident. What's high production values? It has to look good and it has to sound good. It has to be well edited. It's easy to say, but it's actually a craft that takes a lot of time to develop. And the same with storytelling. Storytelling is very simple to say. It's got to be a good story. You got to tell a good story. But how do you do that? That takes a lifetime to figure out how to do. How do you capture somebody's imagination? How do you lead them on, intrigue them, tell them something they don't know, and then surprise them? That takes a lot of skill. It's simple to say, but it's hard to do. But at the journalism school, there's this third element that we really think that we take seriously, and I take very seriously in my class, and that's the reporting aspect of it. And that's why we're doing this at a journalism school and not at a film school or an art school. And I think it's particularly important in this day and age. And I think it's important enough that we have to say why it is that we're doing what we're doing. And why is it that we are journalists? And what does it mean to be a journalist? And so for me, and the values that I'm trying to pass on to the students, is what we do is we go out into the world and we gather facts. And then we compile them and present them in an accurate way so that we can educate the public so that we can all make informed decisions to better our society. It's a very simple premise. You go out and you get facts, you combine them in an accurate way, and you put them back out there so people are informed so we can make decisions to better our society. But that's not always what people think about journalists. It's not always what's out there in the world, but it's a central tenet to the work that we're doing. So the students that get attracted to my class and the ones who end up taking it are ambitious, relentless, prolific, and productive because I put them on a schedule in which they have to produce a lot of videos. So already in the fall semester, they've put on 2 shows. They put on a show for the whole school within the first 3 weeks of school. And that was in the form of the explainers that you saw earlier. I forced them to go on camera. A lot of students don't get into this because they want to be on camera. But the on-camera requirement is very important in my class to do it at least once. Because the way I feel is that in some ways, pictures can speak for themselves. But in another way, it's very important to put yourself out there so that it's a form of accountability to say, this is who I am, and I'm telling you the story, and I'm standing by my reporting. And while a lot of students kicking and screaming comply with these requirements, it turns out they're really good at it. Especially this generation, which, selfies, the whole thing. A lot of us are living, I'm serious, I mean, we live our lives now in this visual format where we're presenting ourselves to the world. My mother's on Facebook all the time. We're all putting our photos out there. We're all telling a story. We're all characters in our own movie. And so there's already this built-in persona of who we are. And it's about taking that persona and developing it into a serious, earnest, journalistic storytelling. Sometimes, you can even use some humor too, and that works. So the stories that the students, I'll show you a highlight reel and some clips of some of the pieces that the students did this fall that I'm really proud of. They put this together, they edited it themselves, and the stories that they chose are stories that matter. They're stories that have to do with immigration, healthcare, mental illness, the environment, criminal justice, urban planning, all these stories that are vital to us being able to understand how to better our society. Let's watch the clips. I think that's probably the best thing to do.
Because the government is pulling apart our family, it's our opportunity to keep us together.
I was always the bad kid.
The United States has seen itself as a home for those seeking refuge, but lately, that's been far from the truth.
San Francisco always wants to be at the forefront and always wants to be the leader, but at the expense of poor people and communities of color.
You're endangering our whole family's health. Why are we still here?
Happy, joy, I was screaming, I was thanking them.
It's just a beautiful process for the way our ancestors lived.
I didn't know I'd get to the point where I'm advocating for people to be detained. That's how low we've gone.
Gabriella is a shaman, and she's getting ready for a special healing ceremony with psychedelic mushrooms.
Mother Earth feeds us, she nourishes us, she gives us shelter. These plants come directly from that energy.
In America today, 48 million people suffer from depression, anxiety, and addiction. More and more of them are looking to psychedelics as an alternative way to heal. Danielle Negrin is one of those people.
A friend of mine suggested that I try psychedelic medicine, and it completely transformed my life.
Long neck, exhale, soften and bow.
Dr. Rael Khan is part of a psychedelic clinical trial program at USC. He and others have concerns about the health risks that can come with psychedelics.
There's a possibility where you do something harmful to yourself or others, and becoming overwhelmed with negative emotion.
The thing is that with all of this industry is still going on anyways, so it doesn't really change the fact of the people who are doing this work.
We come this morning with tender hearts in solidarity with members of our community who are facing unjust deportation.
This could be Saman Po's last day as a free man in America. Almost 2,000 Cambodians are in deportation proceedings in the United States. The vast majority have criminal records.
Here we are standing today, holding families and holding young ones. We are still being separated.
Saman's childhood friend, Hai Hove, went through the same thing 6 months ago.
He's just like myself, we make the same mistake. People make mistakes. We learn from it. It's just part of being human.
Saman could be separated from his wife and 4 children and sent back to a country he never knew.
This is my car. I've had it since high school. And like many others, it was my key to freedom. It's almost like the state and cars were made for each other. And in many ways, they were. Until you get to a place like San Francisco, where the hell is the parking. Turns out, parking spaces are more than they seem. They wreaked havoc on our cities, the environment, and our wallets.
I just started getting into problems, started getting into fights. I got charged with robbery.
Jay's detained in Alameda County Juvenile Hall. He missed being tried as a minor by a few months.
I'm happy to be in this program because as soon as I complete it, the felony will be gone.
He's kept in a new unit, one designed for his age group, known as TAY, or Transition Age Youth.
Detention itself can be a really strong factor in a young person returning to incarceration.
To academics and advocates, the TAY unit is a poor investment in the wrong direction.
I feel like they shouldn't be locking up kids in young age because then they get used to being in here.
Sinking water levels lead to all the toxic waste, and windy days blow all of that toxic waste into the air, into our valley, and we're breathing it in.
Not all dusts are created equal, and not all dusts influence humans in the same way.
Big breath.
And I'm starting to think that we should declare the Salton Sea an emergency.
Many of our families come from really just all over the world, with Guatemala being where most of the people are coming from.
The way people are treated at the border is to make their life as miserable as possible.
¿Cuántas noches estuvo con la vida? 6 noches. ¿Fue cómodo o no?
We see the end result of the sort of inhumane way that these people are treated. They're all relatively starved, they're all relatively dehydrated. And if they have a condition, it's worse. And if they didn't have a condition, they got one now.
Hi, I'm Cassandra Herrman, and I'm leading the documentary thesis class this year. I'm an alum of the program. I was taught by John Else, so it's particularly meaningful to be working with the doc students. Our class has 13 students who are busily crafting at the moment 10 films that will be showcased in May. I had the privilege of having Eva Rendle as a student in my class in her first year at the journalism school, and I was one of the advisors on her thesis film. Eva poured an incredible amount of time and love into her film, and it really shows on screen. All That Remains is an intimate portrait of the second responders and vineyard workers who are still dealing with the aftermath of the fires in Northern California's wine country long after the media has turned away. The film won a Student Academy Award, and it was a nominee for the David L. Wolper Student Award from the International Documentary Association. It premiered at the Mill Valley Film Festival, and it's currently playing at festivals around the country. So enjoy All That Remains.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Rohde, and I am the brand new Assistant Dean for Advancement at Berkeley Journalism, and still just processing all that wonderful, thought-provoking work and coverage we just saw. I'm here on behalf of our Dean, Ed Wasserman. He could not be here, but wanted to extend his appreciation and all of our gratitude for everybody spending their evening here tonight with us. Just a quick favor, raise your hand if you learned something new tonight. Thank you. Clearly, for all of us, it was time well spent. If you want to continue following the great work emanating from Berkeley Journalism, we're on all forms of new media, and you can just type in Berkeley Journalism and follow from there. But for now, I just wanted to wish everybody a wonderful evening. Thank you again. Good night, and go Bears.